Welcome, class, to our Week 1 presentation for ME105 medical terminology. Let me start by introducing myself so I'm not just a voice you hear come through your computer. My name's Angie Bland, and I am your instructor for medical terminology. I've been teaching for Vatterott Online for quite a few years, and before that, I taught for other colleges online as well as I taught on ground as a program director, clinical coordinator, and an instructor. So I've been in the field of adult education. Goodness, I hate to say how many years, but I think it's close to maybe 15 years. I do have my bachelor's of science in medical imaging. I've worked in a variety of different settings. I've worked in the hospital. I've worked in a medical office. I've done a variety of different positions, all the way from x-ray technologist to office manager. So I have a wide array of knowledge that I can share with you. And one of my favorite classes to teach is the one that you're currently taking, which is medical terminology. It is truly one of the foundational courses and building blocks to having a successful career in any kind of healthcare or medicine. So it is one that you don't want to take lightly. It's pretty fun because it's like learning a new language. So welcome. Feel free to ask me questions whenever they come up. Don't hesitate to shoot me an email. Even if it's the littlest questions, it's all very important. And I never want you to feel like you're in this class alone because I'm always here to help you. So let's go ahead and dive right in. We're going to start with a few reminders, just some kind of week 1 things. And then we'll talk about the content for the week and kind of hit home some high points of really where to focus your time and energy in terms of what I feel is most important for you for your quiz, because most students tend to worry on that quiz. So we'll really hit that hard so that you feel well prepared. Here are our objectives for this week. You can always find the weekly objectives on the syllabus, so I'm not going to read through those. But basically, the most important part that I want you to realize is that we are focusing on 2 chapters in your textbook, Chapter 1 as well as Chapter 2. Since it is week 1, do make sure you've ordered your textbook. If you haven't, go ahead and do so. Don't let it hold you up if you're still waiting for it to arrive. The textbook chapters for the first couple of weeks are built into the classroom under the Modules tab, and then go to week 1 and look for something that says textbook reading or textbook chapters. And then you can read them from there while you wait for your textbook to arrive. Our textbook for this class is Medical Terminology Get Connected. It is the 2nd edition of that book. So you do want to make sure you have the correct book once it arrives. To me, one of the most important things getting started with a class is understanding when things are due. And as a student, when I went and did my bachelor's of science and also my master's of science in training development, I did part of my schooling online, and you have to be pretty organized with your due dates. I'm not there staring at you face to face in class saying, hey, this is due on Friday, make sure you write that down. So the good news is everything is due basically at the same time each week except for week 10, and we'll talk about that when it gets closer. But you have 3 things generally coming due each week: a quiz, an assignment, and discussion postings. So the discussion postings are something you want to do early in the week. We want your initial posting, which is your first posting where you answer what the discussion is talking about. We want that to be posted by Wednesday at the latest. And then we want you to check back in there and respond to your classmates throughout the rest of the week. And you'll need to respond, in addition to that initial posting, at least 2 other times to other people. So that would be a total of at least 3 postings. And then the final due date for that is Sunday of each week. Your postings need to be good quality and quantity. We can't just have a couple sentences for you to reply to someone with, oh, I really like how you said that. Really try to expand the conversation, ask questions, put some thought and depth into it. Always on your initial posting, support it with a reference source. And do make sure your postings are always your own words. You will also have an assignment and a quiz each week, and those will be due by Sunday as well. So once you get into the habit after this first week, then it should be to where you know and understand what's coming due. But for now, I would recommend writing this down somewhere, putting it on a sticky note, putting a reminder in your phone, whatever you need to do to remember these important deadlines. Let's start diving into our content for this week. One thing to note, especially with medical terminology, spelling is important as well as pronunciation. If you spell a word incorrectly with medical terms, it could actually mean something different. So that's why when I grade your work, I'm going to be looking pretty heavy at your spelling. And it's not that I'm trying to be mean, it's just that I want to keep you from having something misconstrued later, because that is kind of a big deal. Pronunciation. I don't get to hear you pronounce the terms, so this is important. There's different things that are available to you so that you can hear the terms pronounced. There are resources that I have linked into the classroom. If you go to the modules tab and then from the instructor document and then scroll to the bottom of that document, I usually have some helpful resources or web links or videos linked in there. That's going to help you learn how to pronounce those terms. I also recommend find a study buddy. If you have a friend that's in the same program of study, or if you know someone that works in healthcare, use them to ask you questions, make some flashcards, have them check you, and start using this terminology as much as possible. It's kind of similar to learning a language. You are learning the language of medicine, and the more you use it, the more it's going to get in your brain, and it's going to be easier for you to know and understand what people are talking about. Roots and combining vowels. When we are talking about medical terms, we can break terms down into their word root. We can break it down into combining vowels. We can talk about suffix and prefix. Similar to the English language where we can have suffixes and prefixes on words, same with medical terms. There's always a root, and the root is what gives the meaning to the word. So to know and understand medical language, you have to be able to first understand the word elements. Without understanding the word elements, you're going to look at a medical word and be overwhelmed because you won't understand how to break it down. Once we know how to break it down, then it's kind of like solving this mystery where we can derive the meaning from it. So the word root is the foundation of the word. It's based of the word to give its meaning, and word roots are generally Greek or Latin in origin. Some words will actually begin with the word root. Here we have an example of that, hematology. Hemat is the word root. They don't have to begin with the word root. Sometimes we have a prefix. Another word that begins with the root, pneumonia. Pneum is the root of that word, and some words can actually have more than one word root. So once we found that word root, we can see that middle O in hematology. That combining vowel is there for a reason, and we'll talk about that in a second. And then we have suffixes. And suffixes are pretty fun, I think, because it further defines that word root. Let's go ahead and talk about that combining vowel. Don't let that combining vowel be too tricky. When I first looked at combining vowels as a student, I was like, oh my gosh, I don't get it. It's just there for a particular reason, and don't sweat it. So the combining vowel joins a root to another root or a root to a suffix. It's kind of like a bridge that connects the main roots together, and it makes the word easier to pronounce. That's its purpose. So it's not something I want you to sweat over, but when we're talking about understanding how to spell the terms, it becomes important with that. So when we hear the words combining form, again, don't sweat that. That's just the root plus the vowel. So if we add pneum plus O, we get pneumo. That would be the combining form, pneumo. The combining vowel is still O, and the word root is pneum. We could add a suffix to that, and that's adding something to the end of the word. And it helps change the root element. So again, suffixes are added to the end of the root or the combining form. And remember, the combining form is the root plus the combining vowel. There's a rule that we need to kind of remember of whether we need that combining vowel or not. And here's what we look for. If the suffix begins with a consonant, so remember our vowels are A, E, I, O, U. The consonants are all the other letters of the alphabet. Then it must follow a combining vowel. So it's going to have us add a vowel in. If the suffix begins with a vowel, then no combining vowel is needed because we don't have two vowels together. Okay, so again, the suffix, if it begins with a consonant, then we have to have the combining vowel. If the suffix begins with a vowel, then we don't need that combining vowel added to it. So again, just to sum it up, suffix is found at the end of the medical term. It can be attached to the root or the combining form. And then we have our rule here about whether a combining vowel is needed or not. All medical terms must have a suffix. So that is something I do want you to remember. It does modify the word root. So it's going to tell us more about that word root and further define it, the term as a whole. Here we have cardi as our root. So cardiology is the study of the heart. I want you to be careful here because I know we have two vowels in a row, but our word root is cardii, and then O is the combining vowel. We added that O because our suffix, logy, L-O-G-Y, it doesn't start with a vowel, so we had to add that O in. So we can determine that cardii is referring to the heart, but then when we add that logy at the end, then we're talking about the study of the heart. So you can see how it affects the meaning of the word or the term as a whole. Cardiodynia, that's heart pain. Cardiomegaly, that's enlarged heart. And again, same word root, but we have different meanings of the term based on that suffix. We'll touch just briefly on prefixes. We study prefixes in more detail in week 2, so we're not going to hit that hard this week. A prefix is similar to a suffix except for it's added at the beginning of the word. So it's added before the root or the combining form. The prefixes never require a combining vowel, so we don't have to worry on that. And not every term has a prefix. It's not a have to. It does give a new meaning to the word. Again, we don't have to worry about the rules for combining vowel. It's not a requirement, so a word does not have to have one. Occasionally, a term can actually have two prefixes, but I think that's where we'll kind of leave prefixes here for this week, and we will talk about prefixes more next week, so more to come on that. If we look at these word pieces that we just discussed, so think of it like you're putting together a puzzle. When you're faced with a medical term and it looks overwhelming, just remember you have to just break the puzzle pieces apart, look at the meaning of each, and it will be the combination you need to figure out what the word means. So, medical terms are like puzzles. They're made up of all these different pieces. A prefix plus a combining form plus a suffix can make a medical term. A prefix plus a suffix can make a medical term. A combining form plus a suffix can make a medical term. So there's different pieces of the puzzle we can have, but in general, once we break the pieces apart, we can define each and define that whole term by putting that puzzle back together again. So you are not going to know every word just by first looking at it, and that's okay. What's important is that you know how to break it apart and then look at each piece before you try to figure out the meaning of the word. Plurals can be tricky, I'm not going to lie to you. Plurals are one of those things that as you're using terminology more and more and more, the ones that you use the most, you're going to realize and memorize the plurals for those. And the reason why it's tricky is it's not like the English language where we simply add an S or an ES and then it becomes a plural. Medical terms aren't like that. So again, they're not frequently based on the English language. They're based on Latin and Greek. So it's one of those things that once you start using the terms on a day-to-day basis, you're going to memorize the ones you need the most. Here's a list, and it can be overwhelming because I have a lot on here. If the word ends in IS and you're making it plural, then you would change the ending to ES. Things like this, like I said, it's going to make more sense if you wait until you're using terms on a day-to-day basis or you look up the ones you need specifically. The word ends in a UM, it's going to change to an A to make it plural. I know, it sounds crazy. It's not very easy. Again, don't get overwhelmed. Do look up the ones that you need to look up. and then it will become second nature because you will just simply have to memorize it. US becomes an I, A becomes an AE, IX becomes an ICES, EX becomes an ICES. Again, these are ones you can look at. This general list might be something you put on a note card, and then if you're faced with a term and you're like, oh, it ends in a UM, how do I make it plural? Oh, okay, I add an A instead of a UM. That might be a simple one-stop shop to put on an index card. Just a thought. Let's look at some suffixes that I know appear on your quiz this week. I'm not going to give you all of them in terms of what they all mean, because some of them I want you to look up on your own. Your book is an excellent resource. If you are waiting on your textbook and you're like, how am I supposed to look this up without a book? The internet is a great resource. There's many sites that can help you look up suffixes to medical terms. The suffix uria, U-R-I-A, that's going to indicate that it's a condition of urine. Another one I want to tell you is the third one down, IATRIC, itric, such as pediatric. That suffix IATRIC indicates it's a medical specialty. The next one after that, phasia, PHASIA, that's going to indicate porous. Dipsia, so I skipped one and went two down from that, DIPSIA, that's going to indicate thirst. The one I like is ER. ER, if we're thinking of the English language, if we add ER to something, it's usually the one who's doing something. So teacher is the one who teaches. Guess what? Medical terms, if it has ER on it, it's the one who's doing it as well. So that's kind of nice. Pnea, P-N-E-A, that's going to indicate breathing. Gram is going to indicate record or picture. Phil, P-H-I-L, is going to indicate attracted to. Cele, C-E-L-E, is going to indicate protrusion. Again, I know I skipped some of those. These are ones that I would definitely pause the recording, write all of these down, look up the meanings for them, and study that before taking your quiz this week. That's going to be of extreme help to you, because I know it's a lot to digest when we have all the terms in the chapters. So I'll always try to give you some helpful reminders like this. It doesn't mean don't read the 2 chapters in their entirety. Definitely do so, because there's lots of great information in there that you need to get as well. Before we conclude our time today, just a few friendly reminders. I've been teaching online for a number of years, and before that I taught in the classroom, and there's some generally easy keys to success that if you want to do well, there's some definite do's and don'ts. And I always like to share those because my goal is for you all to get all the knowledge you need from my class, have fun, and to be successful. So I'm going to be your biggest fan, your biggest advocate. As long as you're doing your part, I'm going to help you as much as I possibly can. So let's go over the do's first. Some things I definitely want you to do during our class. The green guy with the question mark, ask questions. I don't care. Big questions, little questions, easy questions, hard questions. Send me your questions. I am here to help you. Don't ever wonder or assume. I'm here. You can use me as your reference guide. The clock. Definitely turn things in on time and work on making time during the week to do quality work. You can't just rush it and turn it in at the end and expect that it's going to be great if you didn't dedicate time to it. And you're not going to do well if you're not turning your stuff in each week. It's easy to fall behind because we're not meeting face to face. But one key to success that you totally have within your power is to turn that work in on time. The middle one, always important. Have fun. You are choosing to go to college. This is not something that's a have to, and it should be fun because we are helping prepare you for your future careers. And if that's not fun, I don't know what is. Set goals. You know, the class is not going to do itself. So as much as I would love to tell you, hey, just by entering the class and registering for it, you're going to do great. No, It's not that easy. You have to put in the time and effort. So set weekly goals. Like, I want to get my assignments done by Friday so I can enjoy my weekend. Or I want to get A's on everything I turn in this week. Or by midterm, I want to make sure my grades at a B. Whatever your goals are, write them down and hold yourself accountable. Even if you put a sticky note on your mirror, even if you put a reminder in your phone, when you write it down, it makes it more real. So I always recommend that to students. The sponge is my favorite. You are paying good money to go to school. Soak up every bit of knowledge that you can. Be a sponge and take it all in. Listen to the weekly presentations. Read the chapters. Definitely do the homework and do your best work that you possibly can, and use this time. You're paying for it and you're putting energy and time into it. Make it worthwhile. So there's one big don't, and you'll see it. It's an empty chair there. It's a problem. The class isn't going to run itself. So if you don't log in and you're not completing your work and you're not checking your email and you're not responding when I ask you stuff, that's a problem. You have to be present and you have to be active. Actually, in order to count attendance in our class, you have to submit work. You have to post something to the discussion board that adds to the discussion. You have to submit an assignment, or you have to submit a quiz. Those are the ways that you actually post attendance online. It's not simply by logging in. Anyone can log in, but that's not getting you any more knowledge than you already have. So in order to post attendance, you actually have to complete a physical activity. Please remember that, because I want you all to do well. Okay, at this point, I've kind of gone over the highlights of what to expect in terms of when things are due. I've talked about our content briefly for the week. I've told you what chapters to read. So if you have remaining questions, you definitely need to reach out to me and ask those. You can email me at any time. It's the fastest way to get a hold of me. I do also list my phone number in the announcements section. If you do need to call me, probably text me first. There are times I'm not available to speak on the phone. So again, the fastest way to get a hold of me is probably through email. But if you have questions, don't hesitate to ask. As always, our reference for this week's presentation was our textbook. If you have not ordered your textbook yet, definitely do so. And here is the textbook for our 10-week class. Thank you so much for your time today. I look forward to seeing how we progress as a group, and I look forward to getting to know each and every one of you and helping you along the way. Thank you.